Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
And I'm Roy Candy.
And today we're taking a look at the new version of Heroscape, Age of Annihilation. So, Heroscape came out 20 years ago from Hasbro. Put it out. You could find it all over the place. You could find it at Toys R Us.
I remember seeing it at Target.
You could also find a Toys R Us then. Anyhow, they have remade the game. Renegade has remade the game. And there are 5 different products. There is a terrain pack that comes with a bunch of terrain. There is the base game called the Master Set.
Big old box.
And the Age of Annihilation, the Battle of Wellspring, which is kind of an expansion set. And then you can get both of these either with pre-painted miniatures or without pre-painted miniatures.
Yes.
So this is a backwards compatible game, which means if you have old Heroscape stuff from the past, it all works together. So that's kind of cool. But we're taking this video from the aspect of you may never have heard of Heroscape before.
Right.
So Heroscape is a game that's outside, I was about to say outside time and space. I think it's just outside time. Different creatures from the future and the past and stuff are going to be fighting each other. In this game, you'll have dragons fighting pirates, fighting aliens, fighting weird magicians. There's all kinds of
very
weird
anachronistic,
creatures.
right? So
yeah,
all sorts of crazy stuff.
With bears with armor.
Yes.
So there's some really cool things. And in fact, if you want to see us, we did a live play of this on the channel. But I'm going to give you a bit of a brief overview of how the game works, and we'll be right back. To play Heroscape, you are going to play a scenario. And scenarios will come, they'll show you a map, and many times the scenario will show you how to build that map, each level, and then it will give you specific rules for that scenario. Terrain in this game, very sturdy terrain, just attaches together on the sides like that. And then it is very, very sturdy. And so you can also stack it right on top of other pieces on the map. There's walls that just slide into each other, and you can put them down. So it's very easy to build it, and you'll set it up and build it. You don't have to even follow a scenario. You can build anything you want. After building a scenario, you're going to build your army. Each army has a certain number of points. If you're playing the advanced game, if you're playing the base game, you just pick a bunch of people to play with. They have different stats on them. But when you play the advanced game, which is by far what I recommend, then you will have a certain amount of points for the scenario. Scenario might be 400 points, and you can pick anything you want and put them together as much as you want to. Now, on these cards is a lot of information. In the middle are special abilities that the characters have. On the side, it shows their faction. The faction also is the color, the background color. It shows their size. It shows if they're unique, which means you can only have one in an army, and different things like that. Over here are important stats. The top one is the number of hit points it takes before they are defeated. And the game comes with little tokens to keep track of how many hit points people take. Some of the different characters that you have are going to be what's called squads. And a squad will have multiple units, and usually squads are 1 hit point each. It will tell you how far they move, their range, how many dice they roll for attack, and how many dice they roll on defense. In this game, you're going to be attacking people a lot. You're going to be rolling these dice. These dice have hits on 3 sides, defense on 2, and a blank side. So if this Knight Irene is attacking Lovalactek, the Kyrie warrior, they have 4 attack dice. They would roll. They've rolled 1 hit. And then the Kyrie warrior would roll their 3 defense dice, and they block 2, so they take no damage. Of course, that could have easily gone a different way. 2 hits, block nothing. And you keep track of that. That is how basic combat works. You can shoot people from farther away with range. And like I said, there's special abilities that are going to change everything. On each turn, players are going to have 4 order markers that are numbered 1 through 3 and an X, which is basically a bluff token. You can put these order markers on any of your cards that you so desire. You can put more than 1 on each card. At the beginning of each round in the game, players are going to be rolling a 20-sided die. That's going to give you your initiative number. Whoever rolls higher gets to go first. And this die might be used for special abilities and other things too. So let's say I will go first. I will then find my number 1 and activate that card. That means I can move that character and do special abilities and attack with them. Then my opponent does their number 1, then I do my number 2, and so on and so forth. If you get to a number and that person happens to have been defeated, you're not going to be able to use them. When moving people around the board, if I have like 4 movement. It's pretty simple. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go up, you count the side as an extra movement. So to go from here to here would cost 2. 1, 2 to go up. And so if you're jumping up a steep area, you might not even be able to have enough movement. Like over here, you can see that going from this spot to this spot would cost 1, 2, then 3. And to go up here would cost 5. You might not have enough movement to do that. Height in this game is also important because when you attack or defend and you are higher than the opponent, you will get an extra die if you are higher than the person you're going up against. Scenarios can also have glyphs. You place these glyphs face down, and if someone lands on a glyph, they can stay on that glyph and get a bonus. So, for example, if you're on this, you add 8 to your initiative. This one here stops all units that fly where they ignore terrain. And then there's water. If you move into water, you will stop moving. There's special tokens for different abilities. There's special things in the rule book, and in these, it'll tell you the lore of each of the different characters. But that's it. You can play a scenario where you just try to kill your opponents, and whoever kills more opponents wins, or you play to the death, or you can play a scenario where someone's running something across the board. But that's how you play Heroscape.
Okay, just so you know, there's basic rules in the game, and I will never, ever, ever, ever play them.
Right.
They're just boring. I mean, I don't think the game is that complex anyway. And if you're going to play this game, you might as well just play with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play with kids, but honestly, if I was playing with kids, I'd probably just help them with the special abilities instead of playing the basic stuff, you know? I mean, just give them a little team that works together real well and just be like, oh, well, you get to roll this extra die for this thing, you know? It's not going to be too hard.
So a couple things about the production values and such. So obviously the price of this has gone up in the 20 years since it's come out, but that's just how life works, and plastics have gotten more expensive and everything. You don't have to get it painted. I would always get it painted just because it's easier for me to tell them apart when they're painted.
Right.
It costs a little bit more, but the ease of play is there. I'm not a big fan of the boxes. The boxes are essentially...
The tuck boxes.
Yeah, the tuck boxes. They're kind of... I don't know. They're just not good for storage. I store Heroscape in a big bin myself, but I can see that. But the terrain...
I think people have seen Heroscape terrain so much that they don't remember how amazing it is.
It's really amazing.
Really cool.
And I'm still trying to figure out who invented that initial shape.
Yeah,
of the large one.
Crazy hexagon with a super weird shape, and you can make so many different maps. I mean, people play 40K and play all these different miniatures games, and those games don't come with terrain. They don't come with any of that stuff. But the way the terrain works in this game is so cool. Not only can you make these awesome maps, but you also get to the mechanics of it are really cool too, with all the leveling and okay, I can move this many spaces to go up this terrain. I just think it all works really well together.
It really does, and you can go to, there's a website called Heroscapers.com where you can find map after map after map after map, and they'll ask you how many sets you have. And then you tell them how many sets, and you can make gigantic maps. And I have made these huge maps. And I do like that they have this terrain. Now, these are just trees here in this terrain box, but they have a box of just terrain on its way so that you don't have to keep buying more of these master sets.
That's awesome.
So right now, the game, let's pretend that the older game doesn't exist. There's still a lot of variety in this game. If you go watch our playthrough, Roy and I played some pretty large armies, and we switched them out and had almost completely different characters in the second
do this
time.
And change that and do that and do this. You know, the expansion did add a little bit more to that.
Sure.
And that's mostly what the expansion adds. I mean, it does add more terrain, but the main thing it adds is you get a bunch more new characters to play with.
And now, for sure, I want more. This game gets better the more creatures you have, and it allows you to make more synergies and more combinations. And, oh, this pirate works with this guy, and this alien works over here. And for me, that already exists with all that old stuff.
Right.
But I do realize a lot of the old Heroscape stuff is fairly pricey, and a lot of it's out of print. But I don't feel like you're at a disadvantage for that. You can get this. Now, the game itself, very straightforward. You are going to pick the order markers on the cards, reveal them, move, and by the way, you already mentioned the movement system is so clean. And then you attack and defend, also clean.
Yes, it's very simple how everything comes together. You do have like a little bluff marker for the order, so you can be like, oh, I might move this guy. And you can also order the same guy multiple times as well, so you can try to like spam orders on a character. But if that guy gets knocked out and you have a bunch of orders on that guy, you're going to have like wasted a bunch of actions because you go back and forth with that. I find it interesting. I love the whole like bidding for the order of the different characters, almost being like, man, this is the guy I need to go first because I really want him to get a hit on Tom and maybe knock this person out before they hit me back because they're so strong. There's those interesting decisions in it. That being said, the game is super lucky, but it's a miniatures game and it's really about building that army first. This feels like one of those simulations of like, well, what if I put this up against this up against this? Like those computer simulations you run where it's like 100 bears in armor versus 1 dragon, which will come out? And you just run the simulation a little bit. You chuck dice, you kind of move them around the terrain a little bit and see what happens. It feels very much like that, but that's fun.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. There's a lot of luck in the game. There's no question on that, but there's also just, you do get to make strategic choices. You do get the choice, should I shoot these guys or should I move these other guys into position? And the glyph system that this game has, where you put these glyphs out, and if you're standing on a glyph, your team gets that bonus, is a really big deal. This set actually doesn't lean into that as much as the other sets have, and I hope to see more of that in the future. Like if you're on it, everyone has attack +1.
Yeah, that's huge.
You know,
and it's like, dang, I need to knock him off of that so I can get the attack +1, not him. You know, that sort of thing.
To that end, slight negative, they have a bunch of scenarios in here, and I don't think all the scenarios worked. In fact, one of the ones we played where there's lightning storms hitting everything, I just thought that was kind of random.
If you thought Heroscape was lucky before, getting half your army wiped out by random lightning, which, I mean, it's actually kind of true to life because we're kind of
No, I get that, but I mean, I just don't need that. I'd rather go around and fight the other person. There's one person runs through them. The fact of the matter is, it's a world building system. It's like Lego. You can build this terrain, say, I start here, you start here, let's fight. Pick a point in an army. And I like that because it makes it very easy. I mean, I've played Heroscape so many times with various things going back and forth like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just enjoy the way the game works and comes all together. I mean, I don't have nearly as much experience with Heroscape in general. And before I played with Tom, I had really only played it like with my my little brother-in-law way back in the day. And yeah, I hadn't played the game too much, but playing it with another adult and being like, okay, what's the combos? What's the strategies? Building your army beforehand is really the strategic part of the game of trying to figure out how those guys are going to combo together.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much. I mean, I don't mind. I'm not trying to speak against heavy miniature rule sets with range and line of sight and all these things, but there are so many things Heroscape just distills down. Line of sight.
That's one of the things I was going to say. Line of sight is so cool.
Yeah. Can you see it on the model? It shows you. That's easy enough. Movement, so easy. And armor, well, that's just your defense dice. And you're using the same dice for attack and defense, and which, by the way, was not in the original set. They had different sets.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they combined them.
They had the same pips on them?
Yeah,
or?
it was the attack dice had the attack on 3 sides, defense was on 2 sides.
Oh, interesting.
And then someone was like, hey, I have an idea. But all this comes together to make a rollicking game. And that's what I want to play sometimes. I don't necessarily always want to play a 4-hour miniatures game. Sometimes I want to play a 30-minute game. It is fair to say that setup can take a while.
Right.
But
especially depending on how involved you want to be with it. You know, if you get even more sets, it can get even crazier.
But for a lot of families, if I'm playing with my son, that's going to be part of the game.
Right.
Is building the whole thing. It's just fun to build that up. What would you give it?
For me, I'm going to give it a 8.5. I really enjoy this game. I'm not as big of a fan normally of like attack dice and defense dice because it kind of hurts a little bit when you roll the dice and get a whole bunch of attacks, but then Tom rolls the perfect defense because his character is super strong. But I still love the way the game comes together. I love army building in games. I love being able to have that point buy system. I'm a big fan of other miniatures games where you do this, and this does that in a very simple form factor. So it allows you to give that sort of miniatures game vibe. And then like I said, the tiles, like I don't think people like even realize how awesome they are just because they're like, oh, Heroscape tiles. People say they're awesome all the time. They're really awesome. They're really cool to be able to build that stuff out and put it all together. I'm a huge fan of aesthetics in games and just having it all set up on the table and being all together. It's just fun. It's like a game. It's like, I want to play that, you know? You walk by it at Gen Con, they have this gigantic stand of Heroscape. It's like, that looks insane. And you can set that up at your house, you know? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, terrain is really expensive in real life. It's a lot of work for terrain for miniature games, and then it's also very fragile.
Right.
What do you do with it when you're not playing with it? You stick it on the shelf. Here like I said, I have mine in a plastic bin, and you can do that. You can throw everything into a bin, and it's going to be fine. So for me, this game is great. It's always been one of my favorite games, and it's kind of faded for me for a bit in the last 5-6 years because I just haven't played it as much, and it's back, baby. I'm giving this a 9.5.
Yeah.
I really like it. Now, realizing that my rating also takes into account Heroscape as a general system.
Right.
And
you've been a huge fan of this for forever.
I have, and so I have the old stuff to mix with this, and I mean, Renegade has already announced their next release, and they got more releases beyond that. So really cool things, and it's a fun game for you to buy for your kids. This is like, for me, I'd rather buy my kids this than Warhammer because it's more contained system, easy for them to play, and I'll play it with them. But forget the kids even. I can just play this with other adults, and it's just as fun. Sometimes you just want to watch a movie, and you're like, this isn't a classy movie, but it's super fun.
It gives you those moments of like that excitement of chucking a die and being like, I could hit him this time. You know, I don't know. I love that in games, and Heroscape has that in spades.
Later on this week, I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to go over all the different creatures and tell you which ones are my favorites from this new set. But that's our basic review of the game. If you're wondering about this compared to the old game, it's essentially the same game.
Right.
They're completely compatible with each other mixed, so I'm not making a video comparing the two because they're essentially the same. But go back and watch my review from 20 years ago of this and watch my review now, and I have essentially the same thoughts.
There you go.
This is a game that hasn't faded for me. Heroscape. Age of Annihilation.
Awesome.
I'm Tom Vasel,
And I'm Roy Kennedy.
and we'll meet you on the field of battle.
Let's go.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video on the Dice Tower. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with Dice Tower? Do you want to know about our events, our cruises, special things that we're going to do live here in the Dice Tower? Subscribe to Dice Tower Digest. Go to dicetowerdigest.com. It's a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We won't use your email for anything else. This is just to get you some information about the Dice Tower so you'll be up to date. Thanks for watching.